The worst non-show business job I ever had is I had to bury a horse once for money.
For how much?
For $40. So
I can't top that.
who could?
Yeah.
That's true.
And it didn't go great either.
Oh, and I waited tables too. Yeah, at a chain Italian restaurant. But believe it or not, burying the horse was worse.
Telemarketer. That was pretty awful. I would cold call people around the United Kingdom and get hung up on more often than not. That was brutal in airless, windowless rooms. That was really, I paid my dues that way. Yeah.
Dishes at a bakery where I had to scrape off the muffin after stuff.
I was working in a research lab at the Yale School of Medicine with lab rats. It was quite intense.
My worst job was an absolutely incredibly well-intentioned original play that I did when I was just graduated high school, and I had to do many a suggestive thing, including stripping and catwalking is not a big deal unless you're really uncomfortable and awkward and goofy as a 17-year-old as I was, and I spent a lot of the show with my shirt half off, and because it was in my hometown of DC, a lot of my friends came to see it, and that was one of the hardest jobs I've ever had to do.
So many jobs. Like, I started working when I was 12 as a chambermaid, and I used to steal cigarettes from the American tourists, funnily enough, from the, you buy the big duty-free boxes of cigarettes, and I would cut it open at the bottom and sneak out 40 cigarettes and then close the box again. So many tourists went home with the wrong amount of cigarettes. And then I broke 13 TVs because I did some flooding because I wanted to watch Dallas. So that was my first job.
So after 9/11, you may remember the anthrax attacks when there's anthrax in the mail. I had a job going through mail for Ralph Lauren, going through returned mail all day. They just gave me a pair of latex gloves and were like, hope there's no anthrax in it. I swear to God.
So I was expelled from school when I was 16, and I went to my brother to get me a job. He got me a job in a nightclub called Box Nightclub, which got shut down this year actually, R.I.P. And it was glass collecting. And I started to drink vodka behind the bar and was fired after 3 shifts.
The worst job that I had to do was I had to sit in a small cubicle and do data entry for an hour, and I had no idea what I was doing.
So the worst job I had was construction because I was in Miami, Florida, which was jungle hot. I was just like moving bricks from one point A to point B. It was not a good look. But I guess it taught me a little bit of a toughness, preparing me for the toughness of the business, but it was rough.
One was selling corrugated storage boxes over the phone, and the other was being a hostess in a Japanese restaurant, and I lasted a day in each of them.
I was actually a kids camp counselor, but the reason why it was crazy is because I had to drive an hour and a half both ways up through these windy mountains. But the worst part is that my dad gave me his stick shift car, and so I almost broke the car winding through these mountains. That was the worst job.
I would dress up as a Disney princess and go to little kids' birthday parties, and I would have to tell the Cinderella story and sing, and I had no idea who these kids, it was just so silly. I'd drive to their houses with my boom box, because we didn't have like iPods back then, and do the thing, and then peace out in my normal clothes, and they'd be like, who's that?
Handing away sort of kind of free t-shirts in Times Square outside of Total Request Live. I just moved to the city and I had to do this, but it was actually some sort of like Ponzi scheme, I think. And it was really upsetting because I knew that it was like a total scam, but I got like $20 an hour, and then I could take that, $60, walk immediately to TKTS and spend it.
The worst non-show business job I ever had was having to answer phones. Like, I was a receptionist. Apparently my bedside manner wasn't good. Or when I did get better at it, I was too bubbly for some people. So it's like you win some, you lose some, you actually just didn't win any.
Last year, while SpongeBob was waiting for a theatre and I had nothing to do, and I could have asked my agent to try and find me other jobs, other auditions, but I really wanted to do SpongeBob. So I was waiting around in Maplewood, New Jersey, where I live, and I decided to get my realtor license, which was a lot of hard work. And then I realized it's a really hard job that you have to do 80, 100 hours a week to get started and then build up your base of people that want to buy a house from you. And I never got that far. I kind of gave up. And luckily, we then got a phone call to say that we had a theatre for the show. So I don't know if it's something I'm going to ever go back to. I'm glad I did the exam and got the license, but it's too hard. It's really hard being a realtor.
So I was an office temp for a long time before I started grad school. And one time I worked for a month at Nickelodeon Junior magazine, which was fine. The job wasn't bad. But one day I had to call the winners of a contest they'd had. So at like 3 in the afternoon or 1 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, I'm calling the houses of all these like 9-year-old children, and their parents are like, Jeremy's 9. He's at school. Who are you? And I'm like, he won a prize. That was it. That was the weirdest thing.
I worked at a personal injury law firm downtown on Wall Street, and they were doing a huge claim on medicine. I want to say it was maybe heart pressure, blood pressure medicine. And I had to call, they had to hand fill out these forms, and I had to call all of these people when I couldn't read their handwriting to enter it into computers. And I had some of the most horrendous conversations I've ever had in my life. It was terrible, actually.
Well, picking up dog poop for money, that was my first thing that I did that was not fun.
Did it last long, that job?
No, thank God.
My freshman year of college, I got a really late start finding a job. So my mother found me a job bagging groceries at the IGA supermarket around the corner from my house for $4.25 an hour. But I had a lot of time to think about writing.
All right, so I had a job for 4 weeks over a winter break processing checks at a bank. So all I did was open envelopes and drop checks into a slot. And I had to do that for 8 hours a day. Thankfully, it was only 4 weeks.
I was working at a movie theater, and I would have to sell the popcorn and clean the toilets. Not at the same time.
I punched holes into paper for a whole summer. Oh, yes, I surprised you, didn't I? Yeah. Yep, I did. Did they pay you? Yeah, no, I did it for free. I couldn't wait to get there every day. Yeah, no, it was like a temp job that lasted all summer long.
Well, I worked at the American Girl doll store in the customer service department. I worked in the doll hospital, and I used to have to check in dolls and that were broken and tell little girls that they were going to the hospital to be fixed.
For a summer, I worked in the gift shop for the Metropolitan Opera. So it was a little bit show business, and it was terrible. Selling, mugs with musical notes on it, that kind of stuff. I mostly was in the stock room.
I think waiting on tables was really romanticized in my head for some reason. I was like, you have to be a waitress before you can be a successful actress. I don't know why, but I love You've Got Mail because I love She Loves Me. And so I came to the city and I was like, I'm going to work at Cafe Lalo because that is my favorite rom-com and my favorite musical. And I worked at Cafe Lalo, and it was working with sorority sisters. It was the best thing ever. I would stay up there till 4 a.m. and eat cake all the time, and it was great.
My worst non-theatre job was designing one of the zones at the Journey Zone for the Millennium Dome in London, which was, I went into a company to go and help them out for 2 weeks, and I ended up staying for 6 months and designing the entire zone. It was crazy.
I worked at McDonald's for 3 days. You can tell by the length of time how bad it was. It was a corporate, timed, intense, hot environment, and serving terrible food to people who probably didn't need it.
So I worked in Disneyland Paris in a store called Constellations, where I had to wear this crazy outfit which had these huge shoulder pads. And the most important challenge, there was a teddy bear pyramid, and you had to look after and coordinate a teddy bear pyramid. So that was my first job.